Having the right setup, I think, can change everything. For me, it lets me do what I want to do, what I intend to do, more efficiently and just better. And so that is where this setup comes in. It is not very complicated. It's actually very simple, but that's because it has one purpose, and really one purpose only. And I love creating setups that are dedicated for the task at hand, because for me, well, it honestly just helps me stay on task and actually get what I need done. And that is no different with this one. In fact, if there was one setup that I'm like the happiest with because it really solves a problem I had, well, this is the one. Now, this idea started and came to me because Ugreen reached out and wanted to sponsor a video on their NAS Sync DXP 6800 Pro. So this is a NAS system. And well, when I was thinking about, what could I use this for that I wasn't already using a NAS for? Well, that's where this setup came to me. This setup is my one-stop shop for handling and managing all of the footage and files that I do for, these videos, not only for YouTube, but outside of YouTube for any content I'm creating. This is what this setup is for. And honestly, that means this is a pretty simple setup, but it is probably the most effective one I have had. It actually solves a problem that I was dealing with. Now I'm going to get into the NAS storage system and all of the details in just one second, but first, the reason for this setup. Now, for me, the biggest, issue or thing that I always forget to do is back up my footage. I already have a NAS from Ugreen that I use all the time, but I just find myself always forgetting to back up the footage that I need to, whether that be the final files after I finish a video, or whether that be the raw footage right from the camera. I just find myself always sitting at my regular desk setup, dumping footage from my camera and getting straight into working. And then I eventually remember a month down the road that, hey, I haven't backed any of this up. And so then I had to sit there and let everything download and back up to my NAS. The NAS itself is always pretty easy, but I just always forget to actually do it. Hence the dedicated setup for that. So the goal is to be able to sit down after I have filmed footage. So, I'm out shooting B-roll, I'm out shooting this. Instead of sitting at my editing computer where, I normally would go, instead I first go here and dump all of my footage. And I do that in a few ways. First is I dump it to an SSD. This is what I use to edit off of. And I would normally be dumping it at my editing computer, but here I dump it there. And I think more importantly, the point of this setup is that I also back it up at the same time. So I'm transferring it to the drive that I'm going to be editing off of, and I'm transferring it to my storage device so that in the future, if I ever need that footage, I already have it. Now I'll get into the details of the setup because I actually love it a lot. But first, let's talk about the DXP 6800 Pro. This is a NAS storage solution from Ugreen, and it's packing a ton. NAS systems like this are really nothing new, but Ugreen is a pretty recent entry into this space, and I think they have brought a lot to the table. First, just from a design perspective, I think they have built a really, elegant and nice looking product. I have it here sitting on the desk, and it doesn't sit out of place at all. It looks great. And not only does it just look good, that really isn't that important, at least to me, but it is very functional. It's designed well. So if you need to access the drives or when you're putting them in for the first time, super easy to access. You just push here and pull out the slide, and you can add the drive without any tools. You just pull it apart, snap it together, and it's solid, and you put it back in, and that's it. It's a very simple process that is really well designed. You can lock them in so that they don't accidentally get pulled out. But as you can tell, this is a 6-bay NAS, which means it holds 6 hard drives. Here I have 6 4-terabyte drives, so that's a total of 24 terabytes of raw data. Now, in a NAS system, you often want to do redundancy so that if one drive fails, you don't lose everything. So I am doing that here. For this configuration, I'm using a RAID 5 setup. And what that means is I can lose one of these drives. So if they go bad for whatever reason, I can lose one, but not lose any data. And so in this case, I only have 20 terabytes available, but I'm looking to upgrade that very soon. So that's exactly what this would be for. If you need a lot of drives, if you want to do more redundancy so that your data is never corrupted or has a much less likely chance of being corrupted, I think that's a big reason why you'd want a multiple bay system like this or over some of their smaller options. It gives you the ability to add more drives so you get more storage while also keeping that reliability of redundancy that you get with a RAID system. Now, aside from those bays, you also have 2 NVMe SSD slots available if you wanted to use those as well. So you'll get super fast read and write speeds on there. In fact, you have up to 160 terabytes of storage available. And even for someone like me who's shooting, high quality, high data rich footage. So from my cameras, I'm shooting 4K, 8K, and really high quality. Even that is going to take years for me to fill up or even make a dent in, because each project, even a really big one, at most is a terabyte, and I don't even keep all of the footage. So really for me, this is a perfect setup that I really never have to think about for a long time. Now, with that amount of storage and being able to transfer that much data, what's nice is that this is super fast. So this has 2 10 gigabit Ethernet ports built in for super fast transfer speeds over Ethernet. So if you have, 10 gigabit Ethernet set up for your work setup, you really don't have to worry about speeds at that point. Even if the drive is remote, if you're using 10 gigabit Ethernet, it is going to be blazing fast, and you can basically use it in real time. And that is definitely something I'm looking to upgrade my setup to support, because I'd love to have one of these drives in a different location, but still be able to access it really quickly. Now, even though this is advertised as a NAS, it's more than that. Basically, it isn't an entire computer that you are using for storage in a dedicated way, but it has a processor built in. Inside, it has the 12th gen, 10 core, 12 thread Intel Core i5 processor built in. So, an actual computer processor that you would expect. And it has an expandable 8 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM built in. So, like I said, it's basically a computer that you're using for storage. And well, because it's a computer, you get a whole desktop-like experience with it. So when you log in, you are using the software that Ugreen has provided. And that means there's apps you can use. There's a whole user interface that you can use that's very desktop-like. It is very simple and easy to operate, and that's because, it's basically a computer. And Ugreen provides an all-in-one app, so you can use it really anywhere, whether you're on Mac, Windows, Linux, Apple TV, your iPhone, Android, any system really that you can think of, their app is going to work. So that means you just get a more native experience instead of having to go through other more traditional ways. This gives you that user interface that just honestly easier to use. And with that, like I said, you get different apps. So you have your Files app. This is where you can organize all the files you have. You have a Photos app. So if you wanted to back up all of your photos to this and have your personal cloud, you can do that as well. And you even have like a media player if you wanted to store all your movies and make your own home server. This is a perfect way to do that. The apps that are built in, and these are just a few of them, make that super easy to accomplish. And because the app works everywhere, you just download the app wherever you are, and you can start streaming with this thing being plugged in on your network wherever you want it. Now, the reason why I thought this would be a perfect fit for the setup I was thinking about is because of the port situation that this has. Up front, this has 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, it has an SD card slot, and it has USB-A here. So I can plug right into this and dump footage. I don't have to go through a computer necessarily in order to do that. So it's almost eliminating one step, which is really nice and efficient. So when I come with my, SD card from my C70, I sit down at the setup, plug it right into the NAS, and then I can dump it from there. And then I can also transfer it over to my, SSD. And that works for Thunderbolt drives as well. So if I wanted to plug something in, I can do that over the cable, and it just makes that transfer super fast. Now, luckily I have a, 2 gigabit fiber at my house, so my data speeds are pretty quick to begin with, but I don't really have to rely on that as much for this particular use case because I could just plug right in. So here is my basic process. I go out and shoot, and now I have data that I want to transfer. And because I shoot on an SD card, that can go straight into the DXP6800 Pro. And then at the same time, I will plug in my USB-C SSD. I then go through the Ugreen software where I can see these hardware devices mounted. And typically what I do is I take the footage from the SD card and then simultaneously transfer it to the SSD, which is what I will use to work on my project. And I transfer it to the internal hard drives on the DXP6800 Pro. So now, not only do I have the files ready for me to work, but they are also also backed up in case anything happens to that portable SSD, which unfortunately can happen. And this way of transferring files, well, you could do with really anything. It doesn't have to be video files, but it can be anything. In fact, I also work with a ton of photo files. The Ugreen NAS can support various different types of photo file formats, from RAW to HEIF to JPEG, pretty much anything you can think of. This can support it right in the photo album. So you don't have to worry about conversion. You just dump it all here. You can view it and work with it. And if you're using this for, like a home theater setup and you have all your movies here, this has an 8K HDMI port on the back. There's a ton of USB ports. Really, I think if you're looking for like your all-in-one home server that is going to hold all of your data, like really all of it, because of how much storage this has available, and that is going to perform really well, seems like this is the way to go. Now, powering this right now is my Mac Mini. I probably would have gotten something refurbished or used, but I already had this, and the size of it is perfect for the situation. Plus it has those Thunderbolt ports right up front, so if I need to plug a drive in, super simple. And that is going over to this. You may have not seen one of these in a long time, but this is an Apple Cinema display. This is old school. This is like back when I was in high school. This is what was around. And well, I bought this off of Facebook Marketplace. It is in perfect condition, and it honestly, the design of it is excellent. Now, the panel itself is not that great. It doesn't get bright. The resolution is pretty low, but for how old it is actually quite functional and works perfectly for this situation. I've had this monitor sitting in the closet forever because I just bought it and just wanted to have it. So now I can actually put it to use. And since I am not really caring about like color fidelity or editing or anything like that, I just need to be able to see what's happening on the computer and what I do on the NAS. Well, this is perfect. And I wanted to carry that old school Apple product a bit further. So this is the Apple A1016 wireless keyboard. This style of keyboard is probably one of my favorites that Apple has made. And it's more probably a nostalgia thing because when I got into these computers, this is the keyboard that was available. But I really love typing on this. And this is a wireless version, and I bought it on eBay, basically brand new. It's almost perfect. And if you go into terminal and run a few scripts, you can actually get it to connect over Bluetooth with the current hardware. So I did that, and it's perfect. It's a nice little retro setup that I have here. Ignore the MX Master Mouse. That's also something I had lying around. But yeah, for the setup I was trying to create, I think this is perfect. It's simple. It's just sitting in the corner of the room, and it lets me, come with my footage, sit here, dump everything so that it's backed up, dump it so that I'm able to work on it. And that way I don't forget. And that is, well, thanks to a product like the DXP 6800 Pro. And as a little bonus, World Backup Day is coming up. So if you want to, pick one of these up and start backing up, you can use the link down in the description and get 20% off. That is an excellent deal. And if you've seen my other videos on Ugreen NAS products, well, they all have those same deals too. So if you're looking for one of the other products, go check that out. Links will be down below for all of that. But yeah, I know a setup like this is not exactly needed. I can do everything at my desk, but I just found myself not actually doing it. I had the ability to make a setup, so I made a setup, and well, I'm happy with it. And I think this is actually going to help me make sure I don't ever lose footage again.